Let's go! Oh my goodness gracious, we have ourselves a new Kirk Cousins.
You like that? You like that?
And his name is Tua Tagovailoa. If it is a primetime game, you know Tua is going to crumble. Now, I'm going to give him some leeway. If Grant Dubois, I believe that's his name, number 88, turns his head just a little bit sooner, this ends up being one of the best throws you'll ever see, right? Starts off looking right. Ironically, both Jaylen Waddle and Tyreek Hill are out on this play, okay? Look, that hits Grant right in the chest. He didn't turn his head soon enough, so I can't really fault Tua at all. I mean, that was just an absolutely perfect throw. And like we said, going back to our preseason breakdown, preseason players like that just aren't up to speed to NFL speed, right? And this turns into an explosive INT heading the other way. This is actually a really good job by Jonnu Smith and Braxton Berrios to come back and make this tackle. So this is why I did a video this offseason about not paying Tua, right? I just don't think he does enough for you as a QB. I do feel he is one of the top 15 or so quarterbacks in the NFL, but I also think he is a byproduct of Tyreek Hill, Jaylen Waddle, and Mike McDaniel, right? Because if you have playmakers like Tyreek Hill and play callers like Mike McDaniel, who does a really good job, switching things up, then you get easy completions, right? This counts for yards toward Tua's total when it was just a tap pass. All right, Mike McDaniel, outside of maybe Shanahan and Andy Reid, well, definitely Andy Reid. He is the absolute best red zone play caller. Mike is definitely top 5 when it comes to red zone play calling, okay? So Tua, pre-snap, looked at this and saw that this safety was over the top of basically everything. And then at the snap, he rolls over here to help with Jaylen Waddle on the slant. And DeMar Hamlin is there as well. Okay, we'll give you another angle of this throw. This actually is really good from Tua. There's Gregory Rousseau, who's been a really good player for the Bills. He's right into his face. And Tua does a good job working over here to Devon Achane, who's able to walk this into the end zone. Alex Ingo, a little bit of a whiff, but he also was able to get a small piece. That's really, really, really good football. All right, so we get to the Skycam version of this, and some QB coaches would tell you that Tua actually should have thrown this football to Tyreek Hill, okay? So you had the in-breaker, safety's working over the top, okay? And boom, okay? This ball to Tyreek could be thrown. All you got to do is top shelf it to make sure if you don't want the overhang to get a piece of it. So in theory, this could have been thrown. He decides to work this out into the flat to a wide open Devon Achane, and he is able to walk this thing in. All right, here we go, 1st and 10. God, this is just really nice play design. I love it when you pull a guard and you're actually throwing a pass to the right side. The issue, though, comes to protecting this right side, and this time the Dolphins have really, really, really good pass protection, okay? So this is actually just a 3-level flood read, right? It's not like a flood where you're flooding just one side of the field with crossers, but you're flooding the field with routes here to the right side. This ball right here should never, ever, ever be thrown, okay? I instead would prefer to just throw this football to Devon Achane. He's been hot, but Tua decides to throw this football at a really clean pocket, and you could just see when this is actually released from Tua's hand, this ball just gets away from him. It looked like Tua had struggled gripping the football. You saw a lot of throws in this game where the ball had this kind of upward floating trajectory, okay? So in theory, a good up and down throw can get to Robbie Chosen just sitting right here. But unless Chosen was supposed to run a corner route, that's just an all-time bad throw right there. And it ends up being an INT return, and they're able to tackle him pretty quickly. All right, let's move ahead to this 4th and 2. This is kind of a weird snap because you get Ed Oliver in a standing stance, right? You get him in a good spot. The problem with that is offensive guards are not used to blocking big DTs coming out of 2-point stances. Okay, so this guard oversets, and obviously Ed Oliver just destroys him, and Tua kind of runs into this sack. Okay, now, once again, pass protection did break down. Everything else is really good right here. Mike McDaniel, of course, a better play caller than me. He decided to run a fullback dive, which was very profitable for this Dolphins offense last week versus the Jaguars, but it actually cost them a yard, and they're going for it here on 4th down, which they should. They're down by 10 in plus territory, okay? So I wasn't against the decision. I am always against fourth down scenarios where you don't have a back in the backfield, right? You're letting the pass rushers know that there's no personal protector, and at the same time, that's also letting the pass rushers know that you're not running the football, right? So you're cutting off essentially half your playbook in this situation anyway. Even if you think that they think you're going to throw, I would much prefer a running back coming out of the backfield, especially considering running backs had been very effective for the Dolphins in this game out of the backfield and just in general. Okay, so we start off here. Jaylen Waddle slips. Okay, this still could be thrown, right? Even if he slips here, this could have been delivered. Okay, I understand the Texas route here gave him issue, all right? Don't take your eyes off downfield, and don't just run into a sack, which is essentially what he does, right? Roll out here, see if he can do something, all right? Was this open to Tyreek? It's kind of hard to see. There is a safety over here. It doesn't look that open to me, okay? Now, let's take a look at the bottom here, all right? Bottom of the screen. Is there anything open? It's kind of tough to see with the safety just off, but Tua could have done something a little bit more special here, if you ask me. All right, 3rd and 5. Dolphins were able to get a field goal before halftime. They had a 2-minute drive going, and now Teron Armstead's hurt. He's out. So after he's out, there's really not a whole lot you can do, except in the situation if you're Tua, just step up in this pocket and try and run for it, right? Or, once again, this is never a bad option, right? Instead, you're fading away. You never really want your quarterbacks to fade away unless you're throwing a shallow drag and buying a little extra time. You never want to fade away and throw a football like that. Just eat the sack, right? Because if you're going to do that, you got to make sure you get enough on the football out of bounds. And either way, it would be intentional grounding. You throw it up hoping that Jonnu Smith is there. Instead, you're giving a free pick six, which this very clearly is unabated, okay? All right, so some of my clips quit working, so we're just going to film this off the good old TV, okay? This is, once again, really good design. Now, once again, if you're down by 21, defenses are going to be a lot softer, okay? So, once again, Mike McDaniel has a running back into the flat that you can hit for a pretty nice gain. But that's not where you want to throw the football. You want to throw the football to Tyreek Hill. Even though he's at a leverage disadvantage, it's Tyreek freaking Hill. I love this anticipation that Tua throws with. Look at when he's actually throwing this football. Okay, that's actually really freaking good anticipation. But QB coaches, let me know. This is a wide base. I've heard that shorter quarterbacks do throw at a wider base, so this might actually be good mechanics. But once again, this ball has this weird upward floating trajectory. This needs to be thrown more on a line. Okay, maybe Tua got spooked with all the INTs he's been throwing by this guy. Okay, but this ball, even if you want to throw it high, it needs to get up and down to Tyreek Hill in time for him to actually be able to drag his feet. Now, in theory, could the feet have been dragged? His toe was barely out of bounds, and this foot dragged barely. And that one was actually in bounds, but it was out of bounds. Shows you some of the limitations of Tua's arm strength. Another thing holding Tua back, and let's be honest, Waddle and Hill didn't have their absolute best games when they were phenomenal versus the Jaguars, is Jonnu Smith looks good. I think Jonnu Smith's going to be a good tight end. I don't know why he wasn't the tight end here on the route. I think Jonnu Smith catches this. This is actually a really good throw by Tua on the vertical versus too high. This is where you want to hit him on the seams, okay? DeMar Hamlin slips, and look at this ball location. I think Hill jumped a little too early, but this ball has to be thrown a little bit higher to make sure you get it over that backer, and you've got to catch this if you're an NFL tight end. I feel like you do, right? I think he did jump a little too early, and even if he didn't, You got to make that play. So, yeah, Tua was just objectively not great. Obviously, there were some mistakes by some of the receivers that led to, some misses. But he just wasn't great in prime time, and you kind of hope he doesn't turn into a guy that fades in prime time almost every time, right? It goes back to that Titans collapse where he wasn't the absolute worst. And then, of course, the Chiefs, he was a total non-factor in the cold. And then you get to this play where he actually suffered the concussion and you have a major durability issue, even though last year he started every game. So you're taking a look at Tua's stats now, and as you can see, this man is just not it, right, in the AFC hierarchy of quarterbacks. And I do think there could be some major after effects after another AFC East loss to the Bills. So, I brought this question up at the very beginning, and once again, I do hope Tua gets better. I like Tua. I think he's a very interesting personality, fun personality, relatively private, somewhat quiet guy, but I just like him, right? Very nice guy. Once again, even though he made an absolutely perfect throw, you can hit this and then just go for it on fourth, right? Or hit this and potentially go for it on fourth and medium. But this is the right throw, okay? Guy just has to turn and make a catch on an absolute dot. Now, even though I showed you this amazing throw, I think Tua is the worst quarterback in the AFC East and maybe a bottom 5 quarterback in the NFL. Now, that sounds like hyperbole, but I do like to factor in cost to QB play, right? And I would take the Patriots quarterback room over what the Dolphins have right now because Jacoby Brissett only makes $8 million, and they have a Josh Allen, Justin Herbert-ish kind of player in the wings with Drake May, who I think will be a better starter than Tua. And then, of course, I understand Aaron Rodgers may not be who he once was. I would still take him over Tua, and obviously Josh Allen is a human cyborg. So I know it sounds crazy, but I just don't think Tua is all that great. I think he's good, but you also have to factor in situation, right? Tua has an overall good-ish offensive line. He's got a top 5 RB, if you ask me, and obviously a top 5 wide receiver duo. He would have liked for them to be on the field here. But I would just hate to be that offense right now because you just don't know if he's a guy. And once again, this very serious situation has popped back up. Now, it wasn't a deal last year, but in 2022, it was a big deal, right? So it is very interesting, this dilemma, okay? Let me know what you guys think. It's Power Hour NFL. Boom! And tonight, we're doing some garlic naan. Let's go.